They say deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there's a man who doesn't just live off the land, he becomes a part of it, as if the trees know him by name and the wind listens when he speaks. His name is Eustace Conway, and for many he's more than just a survivalist. He's a myth wrapped in a man's skin. Some call him a hero, some call him a ghost of a forgotten world. But everyone agrees on one thing. There's something about him that doesn't feel ordinary. From the outside, he looks like someone who chose to live free, far from the noise of cities and machines. But the people who live near those mountains, the ones who've known about him for years, speak with a strange tone in their voice when they say his name. They don't say it loud. They don't say it with smiles. Instead, they say it like a whisper, like a warning. Because Eustace didn't just choose this life. Some believe he was driven into it by something most people don't understand. When he was just a young boy, there were already stories floating around, that he was different, that he could hear the forest and feel storms before they came. And when he left home at just 17, with nothing but a knife and the clothes on his back, some people said he was brave, but others said he was broken. He disappeared into the woods into a life most would never survive. But he didn't just survive. He built a world of his own, a place called Turtle Island. And from that moment on, Eustace became more than a man. He became a question no one could answer. Why did he leave everything behind? What did he see in the world that made him run into the wild? People came looking for answers, but all they found was more mystery. Some said he was wise beyond his years, a teacher of forgotten ways. Others said he was dangerous, a man too far gone from society. But one thing is clear. People tried to warn us about Eustace. They told us there was something strange, something you couldn't quite explain. But we didn't listen. We laughed, we watched, we called him the Mountain Man, and forgot that legends come from truth. And now, all these years later, we're starting to wonder, what if the warnings were real? What if there's more to Eustace than we ever understood? Maybe he didn't just leave the world, maybe he was trying to escape something inside himself. Or worse, something he didn't want the rest of us to see. From the outside, it looked like Eustace Conway was just a boy who loved nature more than anything else. But those who watched closely always felt something deeper hiding behind his eyes. He wasn't like the other kids. While they played in parks, Eustace wandered through forests, memorizing the way birds moved and how trees whispered in the wind. His curiosity was endless, but it wasn't the playful kind. It felt urgent, like he was searching for something, some truth he couldn't find in the world around him. His childhood wasn't easy. People who knew, his family said his father was strict, even cold at times, and that home didn't always feel like a safe place. Maybe that's why Eustace began spending more and more time alone in the woods, sometimes not coming back until nightfall. The trees became his friends, the animals his teachers. And while other teenagers were learning to drive, Eustace was learning how to make fire with his bare hands. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. At just 17 years old, he packed a small bag, took a knife, and walked into the wilderness, alone. No map, no plan, no turning back. People around town said he'd lost his mind. Some said he wouldn't survive a week, but deep down, there were others, quiet ones, who believed he had finally done what they were all too afraid to do. He left the world that hurt him. He didn't just want peace. He wanted to build a whole new way of living. But here's where the story begins to twist. Because it's one thing to love the forest, and another thing to leave everything behind and never look back. Why would a teenager risk everything? What did he see or feel or suffer that pushed him into the arms of the wild? Some think he was running toward freedom, but others think he was escaping a storm much larger than we know. Over the years, Eustace would share bits of his story, but never the full truth. And that mystery made people wonder if there was more pain behind his journey than he let on. Some believe he felt like the world didn't want him, so he created his own. Others say he was chasing something spiritual, something not everyone is meant to understand. But even now, the question still hangs in the air like mist over a mountain. What really happened to Eustace before he vanished into the woods? What made a boy give up his entire future to sleep under stars, eat roots, and live among snakes and bears? Was it strength? Or was it survival? We don't know because the forest keeps its secrets, and Eustace never tells more than he has to. But one thing is clear. He didn't just walk away from the world. He left with a purpose. And we're still trying to figure out what that purpose really was. After years of living deep in the forest, far away from everything, Eustace Conway did something no one expected. He built his own world and gave it a name that felt like something out of a storybook, Turtle Island. But this wasn't just land, and it wasn't just a project. It was a new kind of life, shaped by the hands of a man who no longer trusted the world outside the trees. Turtle Island wasn't for tourists or those who came for fun. It was for the few who wanted to leave everything behind, who wanted to live by firelight, walk barefoot in the mud, and listen to the language of the earth. From the moment people stepped onto that land, they said it felt different. Not like a farm, not like a school, but something in between. Something deeper. Some visitors described it as peaceful and pure, like stepping back in time. But others said it felt like the land was watching them, like the air held secrets they weren't supposed to know. There were rules there, but not the kind written on paper. You followed Eustace's lead, respected the land, and listened more than you spoke. He taught survival, yes. But he also taught silence, discipline, and respect for the forest in ways that made some people uncomfortable. Some left with tears in their eyes, calling it the most powerful place they'd ever seen. Others left shaken, unable to explain what they felt. One man said, "It's not just a place, it's alive, and Eustace is its heartbeat." The question people keep asking is, what was Eustace really trying to build? Was it just a peaceful life? Or was it a message to the rest of us? A message about how far we've fallen from the natural world. He spoke of Turtle Island as a classroom, a shelter, a warning. But some say he guarded it too closely, as if he feared what would happen if the wrong people came too close. Locals began to whisper that the land had changed him, or maybe revealed who he truly was. Others wondered if it was less about healing and more about hiding. Because when you build your own world with your own rules, you also create a place where truth can bend. And no one really knew where the line was between Eustace's dream and his control. Why did he name it Turtle Island? What did the turtle mean to him? Was it about protection, about carrying your home on your back? Or something more ancient, something we wouldn't understand unless we had lived through what he had? These questions still circle in people's minds. Some say Turtle Island is a miracle. Others say it's a mirror that shows you something about yourself you're not ready to face. But one thing everyone agrees on, once you enter Eustace's world, you don't leave the same. And maybe that was his plan all along. As Eustace Conway's dream of Turtle Island grew stronger, so did the outside world's desire to tear it down. What started as a quiet life in the woods slowly turned into a battle against rules, systems, and laws that didn't understand the kind of freedom he was living. Eustace wasn't just building cabins and teaching people how to live off the land. He was creating something the government didn't know how to handle. He didn't have the right permits. He didn't follow the modern safety codes. He built without asking for permission. And soon, the law came knocking. He faced court cases, threats of jail, and orders to shut it all down. But every time they pushed him, he pushed back harder. He stood in front of cameras and judges with the same fire in his eyes that he used to light his campfires. He said he was not the problem. He said the real problem was a world that had forgotten how to live simply. But people began to wonder, was he being brave, or was he becoming blind to danger? The land he loved so much didn't always love him back. Accidents happened. Injuries were reported. Some said he was risking lives by not following rules that were made to protect people. Others argued that the rules were never made for people like Eustace, people who lived by the laws of nature, not the laws of paper. And deep down, a quiet question started to grow. Had Eustace gone too far? Was he still teaching people how to live, or was he trying to prove something to the world that had once rejected him? Some visitors said they felt inspired by his passion, but also nervous. Because if something went wrong, there were no hospitals nearby, no safety nets. And Eustace didn't seem to care. He believed pain was part of learning, that fear was part of freedom. But what happens when that belief starts to hurt others? What happens when your fight for freedom becomes a fight with the very world you're trying to escape? People who once saw him as a peaceful guide started to wonder if he had become something else. Something harder, sharper. The forest may have shaped him, but the pressure from the outside was changing him too. He smiled less. He talked more about battles than about beauty. And still, he stayed. He fought. He refused to change. Maybe because he couldn't. Or maybe because he knew that if he let the world in even a little, everything he built would crumble. The truth is, Eustace wasn't just breaking the laws written by men. He was making his own. And in doing so, he became a symbol of something powerful, something wild, and something that not everyone could understand. The stories people told after spending time with Eustace Conway were never simple, never the same, but always filled with a strange feeling, like something powerful had passed by them without fully revealing itself. At first glance, Eustace seemed like a wise mountain man, someone living with peace and purpose. But those who stayed longer began to notice something else, something that didn't always feel calm. They said he could be kind and patient one moment, then suddenly sharp and angry the next. His eyes, always intense, held something heavy, like he was carrying more than just the weight of his work. People whispered that Turtle Island wasn't just a place for learning. It was also a place where rules had to be followed without question, and those who disobeyed felt the cold side of Eustace's personality. A few workers who left early said they felt watched, not just by the forest, but by Eustace himself. They spoke of moments when silence felt loud, when nature didn't feel free, but controlled. One visitor said, "It was beautiful, but something didn't feel right." Like he wasn't just trying to teach us, he was trying to control what we thought. But the world outside never looked deeper. We saw Eustace on TV, chopping wood, riding horses, building cabins. We admired his strength, his passion, his wild way of living. We clapped for him, turned his life into entertainment, and never stopped to ask if we were seeing the whole truth. We didn't hear the stories of the ones who left quietly, who felt like they had touched something sacred and scary at the same time. And Eustace? He never explained. He never defended. He just kept working, as if the opinions of the outside world didn't matter. But maybe they did. Maybe the warnings were never about him being dangerous in the usual way. Maybe the warning was that his way of life was so strong, so different, so intense, that it could change you in ways you weren't ready for. Maybe people feared that once you entered Eustace's world, you'd never fully return to your old one. And maybe that's what he wanted, to wake people up, even if it hurt. But still, the question remains, why did so many people leave Turtle Island with wide eyes and quiet voices? What did they see in Eustace that we didn't? Was he just a passionate man with a dream? Or was he becoming a symbol of something more extreme? Something that could no longer bend or soften? The truth may be buried somewhere between the trees and the firewood, between his silence and his stare. But one thing is clear. The warning signs were always there. We just didn't pay attention, because we were too busy watching the show and not listening to the silence between the scenes.